Hello students, and welcome to the first part of our lecture videos on Chapter 8, which is about the Progressive Era. And today we're going to be talking about the years 1890 to 1920. Now, as you know, we've been studying the last little bit about the fact that industrialization, urbanization, and immigration brought new challenges to America. These were new things that we had never experienced before in our history. Now, the progressives were a group of people that believed that new ideas and honest, efficient government could bring about social justice. So the progressives wanted government to get involved and kind of equal the playing field for everybody in society and try to ensure that everybody prospered. So where did the progressive movement come from, and what are the origins of progressivism? Well, first of all, they come from different political parties, religions, ethnic groups, and social classes. There were Republicans, there were Democrats, there were white people, there were African Americans. All kinds of different groups made up the progressives. What made someone a progressive was a couple core beliefs. And the first is that, number one, industrialization and urbanization had created new social problems. These were new things in America, and they had positive consequences, but there were also some negative consequences. The progressives wanted to fix the negative consequences. And number two, they wanted to create reforms specifically through government to fix these problems. They wanted state and federal laws to be passed. They wanted to apply logic and reason to try to solve these problems. And they also wanted to apply religion and the teachings of the Bible to fix these new problems brought on by industrialization, urbanization, and immigration. Now, we talked about the populists a little bit last chapter, and we're going to bring them into the discussion here because the progressives and the populists were very much alike. The main difference is that the progressives were made up of middle class to wealthy people, and the populists were mainly made up of the poor people, the working class. But they both had the same goal. They wanted to reform government, and they wanted to reform big business to help the common man. Now, we're going to go through a list of problems that the progressives tackled or tried to fix. One is political reform. As we know, this time period was known as the Gilded Age. And one of the reasons it's known as the Gilded Age is because our government was so corrupt and was known for corruption during this time. So they wanted to fix that. They wanted to gain the women's right to vote, which they didn't have nationwide at this time. They had the right to vote in a few select states, but it wasn't a nationwide proposition. They wanted to fix the fact that political machines were running local governments all across the United States. These political machines were corrupt political organizations that used bribery and violence to influence voters. They would hire people and pay people money in order to help them stay in power, and would even help them solve personal problems in exchange for votes. They also wanted to fight the urban conditions that were very poor at this time. They wanted to see paved streets in the cities, safe drinking water, and decent housing. Remember, we talked about tenements in the last two chapters ago, in chapter 5, and that tenements were very crowded, dirty, dark places and were unsanitary, and a lot of poor people, especially immigrants, wound up living here. They said big businesses were corrupt, and some of them were. They said that the monopolies limited competition, raised prices, and they said the Sherman Antitrust Act that was passed in 1990, outlawing bad trusts that acted like monopolies, was inadequate. It was not enough, and that more needed to be done to keep big business from harming the common man. They wanted to fight poverty, including harsh conditions of miners, factory workers, and laborers. They wanted better conditions for the poor people living in the cities, and they wanted laws to protect children. If you remember, there is no law at this time against child labor. So many factories, coal mines, and etc. would hire children because they didn't have to pay them as much money. And the progressives saw this as a problem and wanted government to step in and stop it. Now, there was a group of writers during this time known as the muckrakers. The muckrakers revealed the need for reform. They basically wrote about the bad things in society for all to see. Remember, this is the Gilded Age. So when something is gilded, it looks very valuable from the outside, but if you look just beneath the surface, it's not as valuable as what it seems. The muckrakers wrote about the more unvaluable things in our society, the poor, the dirty streets, the child labor, and so forth. So muckrakers were socially conscious journalists of the early 1900s. They were given this name by none other than Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt likened them unto a muckrake. A muckrake is something that is used to clean out an animal's stable. It rakes out the old hay or straw and manure out into the aisle so that you can clean it out. So it brings it all out for all to see. Teddy Roosevelt said these people were doing this with society. They were writing about and bringing about all of society's problems for everyone to see. So therefore, he called them muckrakers. Thank you so much for watching part 1.